Find and learn from people who lived it wherever you get podcasts. Search it using all one word. Learn from people who lived it.
Welcome to another episode of Learn from People Who Lived It.
Well, hi there. My name is Mathew Blades, and this is Learn from People Who Lived It. I'm excited to get Danielle on our show today. She is my personal acupuncturist, as a matter of fact. I discovered her a couple of years ago when I was in the height of my back pain and just looking for answers, looking for ways to get out of pain. And she was really one of the people in my inner circle that was so incredibly helpful, and I've been dying to get her on the podcast, but she's been making some big life changes, including moving to Utah. So she's been busy. But finally, our schedules allowed us to get together and have a very meaningful conversation, not just about acupuncturists, but about Chinese medicine, herbs, fertility, women, their bodies. She's also here to share a very difficult story, one of being a survivor of incest. So let's get into this edition of Learn from People Who Lived It with my friend Danielle.
My name is Danielle Dickshinski. I am 33 years old.
Danielle, what story are you here to share?
I am here to share the story I'll have how you can thrive after trauma and tools that you can help regulate that and empower yourself.
Who do you hope hears this?
The audience I'm speaking to very specifically are incest survivors, those that have had really messed up families and a lot of childhood developmental trauma, how you can get your voice back through unwinding and reclaiming yourself. Like, that's who I'm speaking to.
I want to start with your own story, kind of what led you to this path, because it's my strong belief that anybody in this healing space is here because they needed it first. You mentioned a little bit of it on the onset, but what is the Danielle story? Where does your trauma begin?
I was born into trauma. So my trauma, from what I can recollect and remember, was started when I was 18 months old. That's
Okay.
my very first memory of that. I didn't remember anything fully until 7 years ago. So I was in my mid-20s.
So everything you'd experienced had been suppressed so much that it didn't even come to the forefront of your mind.
As you look back, I realized there was fragments of memories that I remembered. My body held on to so much because that's what it's built to protect us and do. And it was speaking to me all along that time. And I really started remembering certain pieces when I was 14 and then 16. Like, so my teens is really where my healing started happening, when I started trying different tools and started speaking for myself or learning that. But like 7 years ago, almost 8 actually, when I was pregnant with my first son, that's when I started remembering things very clearly, in denial because I didn't understand it. And it was fuzzy and all those things that happen when you kind of have amnesia kind of thaw out and start remembering things. And then after the person that harmed me when I was a child passed away within 10 months after my son was born, I started doing EMDR therapy to help with grief and things like that. And then also I had a flash of a memory, just like of a person's body, and there was feelings associated to it, but I didn't know what that was. But I knew I was sexually abused. I even said to my family, I'm like, are you sure nothing happened? Because I know my body is telling me, my mind is telling me I'm not crazy. I was sexually abused as a kid, but I don't remember anything. I said this to the person that actually harmed me because I was very close with them. And they said, if you don't remember, then nothing happened.
Wow.
And then it's insane. It was my own father that actually hurt me. So I'm an incest survivor, they call it. And
what does that mean?
Incest survivor is when usually family members that have had sexually abused, usually a younger sibling or a child or things like that.
And that happened to you at the hands of your father?
Yes, it did.
8 years ago, this stuff starts to come to the forefront. Without fully understanding what had happened to you or remembering all of the things, what kind of an impact did that have on you as a teenager? Like, I'm hearing you say, I reached out for some tools and this, that. The other thing, I'm thinking, wow, that's incredible. That's progressive. Most teenagers aren't seeking tools.
Yeah.
So what kind of an impact did that have on you, and what kind of a teenager were you?
I was the good girl. I was the perfectionist. A lot of people think that if you have trauma, you're either going to go out on the street, you're going to be promiscuous, you're going to be a rebel, you're going to be all these things. You're going to have all the red flags that we're been taught or has been, there's like that stigma to it. Mm-hmm. When actually there's a lot of us that go the opposite way, which is being compliant, being, you're taught to be submissive, or you're taught to be perfectionist, you're taught to be really good for the validation and approval, because you try to get love anywhere you can as a child. That's how you survive. And so for me, and as a teenager, I also took care of my younger brothers because there was even more dysfunction between my family. And so, there was a lot of instability and stuff. So I'm the oldest of three. And so I had straight A's and B's at least. I did sports. I worked my first job when I was 16. I, did all the right things. I took care of the house. I cleaned a lot. It was like one of my stress things because I was kind of stuck, or I would run out to the woods and go bike or something because physically that was like the one thing I can control was actual movement. Sports was an energy I can focus and divert into. But I was like the golden child. Yeah. But at the same time, in the women in my family, I was like the black sheep because when I turned 15 or 16, I started being a normal teenager, trying to be and speak my opinion on things or saying no to things. Like finding my no was happening around then, which is, I think, normal. So there was a mix of being the black sheep in some parts of my family, but then also like you would not notice if there was anything wrong. That's on the surface. On the inside, I had insomnia. I had panic attacks happen. I would cry. I would go and hide in the closet. My parents would try to control certain things or they would ignore it. Like there was the two parent fold on that. So it's like, why are you crying or why are you freaking out? Like there's nothing wrong with you. Like,
Can so there was a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry to jump in, but I just am dying to know when you're having a moment where you're in a panic attack and the person who caused you the trauma is trying to be the person who consoles you now or comes in to help you he's like, hey, you're okay. You're okay. And you're kind of thinking, I'm not okay. And it's because of you. But it's just kids. We don't know. We don't think that and we don't say that, or maybe we do. But how did you handle those moments where you were having a panic attack, you were having an episode, and the person who had harmed you might have come in to try to console you in some way? And I use console.
Yeah.
I don't know how I use it. I don't know what the dynamic was.
The dynamic is Stockholm syndrome.
I don't know what that is.
How do you explain it? Usually when someone gets kidnapped and they're the person that's harming them that had kidnapped them or whatever, usually if there's sexual abuse or something and they're with them for a longer period of time, the victim starts becoming befriending or like trying to make a good relationship with the predator, basically. This is how they survive. It's actually a fawning and there's a freeze and fawning response, which is actually a stress response. There's 4 of them in trauma too. So that's kind of what happened when I was in a panic attack. Panic attack is when my body was overloaded, can't handle things anymore. It's trying to do a reset. And my dad would come in, say I'm having a panic attack because it was something for school. That was just a symptom of my deeper feelings. And this was the outlet. And he would come and, I remember he was sitting on the bed with me and I'm shaking, crying and, the whole thing. And he will hug me and tell me it's okay. You're safe. If he was grounded, if not, he would say, why are you crying? Stop it. You wouldn't yell. My mom was the yeller. My dad was more of the mind controller in some ways. But my dad and I had, we were very close. You think of father-daughter relationships, that was us, even though it had no boundaries. And I was, and it was really inappropriate. You didn't see the inappropriateness. So it's mixed. When it came to that situation, I had to learn this in therapy. It wasn't black or white. It was and. What can I say? My dad was more loving, even though he abused me, and people can't probably understand that. My mom was harsher in different ways. I felt safe for my dad sometimes versus my mom. Or my mom, I would feel safer in different situations too. It's just you kind of pick what you can do in that moment.
Do you think your father ever confided in your mom about what he had done?
No. Not at least that she says. No, he hasn't. I almost, before he passed away, this is fast forwarding to about that 8 years ago, I got pregnant with my son and I started having these body flashbacks, you would say, and amnesia, foggy memories. And I asked him, I told you, are you sure nothing happened to me? I know it was sexually abused. And he was the one that said, well, if you don't remember, nothing happened. But after that, my dad started spiraling because he used to use drugs to, self-medicate and stuff.
Of course.
And so he relapsed after that time in that conversation, and he died shortly after that, because of an overdose.
I want to ask you a really vulnerable question right now.
Go for it.
How does being an incest survivor impact your marriage and your own relationship with your children? Because obviously that's a cycle you're going to break.
And that's a huge question. And I was thinking about that as we were approaching this meeting today. And I'm pretty vocal about it. It fucking sucks, because you weren't taught unconditional love. I was in other relationships, as I got a little bit older. My husband has taught me unconditional love. We've been together since I was 16. He was like the next safe guy, and I was like, peace out, family, I'm going. But as things unraveled, like I still had panic attacks. I had night terrors, like all throughout we were together. We're still together. We couldn't put words to it. We couldn't put memories to it. We couldn't understand what was going on. Then as we started growing our family, let me give a few examples. Like if I'm really stressed out and I push myself, I'm a pusher. I'm still unlearning that trauma response, which has contributed to my success, is taking a step and slowing down and regulating and just doing things slowly instead of bulldozing through it. And if I'm stressed out, I don't want to be touched. Like sometimes my husband wants to give me a big quick hug and I will jump like this or be on guard. And he can read my body language now. Like he can't approach me from behind, or I can't be cornered in the kitchen when I'm cooking. Like he knows that if he does that, because he's 6'2", I'm 5'4". And I'm like, hold on, dude, give me a second. I'll put my hands up and he'll take a step back and I'm like, okay, I can have a hug now. So it's a lot of communication. It's trying to read the body language, but we got to a point where we're trying to walk on eggshells about it. We're trying to also do you expose yourself to all right, I'll have a hug. Like this, I have to build up my tolerance to touch. And so that's a big thing, especially with having kids. And it does affect intimacy a lot too. Like you have to work through that. And some people dive right in and that's their healing and they go right full force through it. A lot of times as an incest survivor, you have to learn you've been exposed and open at a young age to all these things. And you're like, what do I really consent to? What do I really want? What is really me? What am I okay with? You have to relearn all that from the beginning. In the middle of that healing, I would say 3-4 years ago, I told my husband, we have to start over. We have to you have to learn how to hold my hand. I have to learn how to just start from there. When we first met, little things. And then if we got to try to keep it regular, otherwise, if you stop for a while as a survivor, and especially if touch is too much for you, you might have to rewire your brain again and say, oh, this is okay. This is safe. I do want this. And if I don't, I don't. I mean,
I have a smile on my face because of the similarities in the way that you're describing the way that you live your life and the way that I live my life. And I just actually made a post about this the other day on social, which is when you go through something, when you have mental health battles because something happened to you in the past or whatever is going on, your family goes through it too. Your family has to relearn some patterns. Your family has to relearn behaviors too. It's not just you that is cycling through these emotions. You force your husband and your wife to go, it's so natural for a husband or a wife to want to come in for a hug. But when you're dealing with somebody who's had trauma along the way, like you said, you might need to pump the brakes for just 1 second. Let me get in the right headspace and then I can hug you. I love the way that you articulate that because I don't know that I too was exposed to sexual stuff way too young in my life, right? I wasn't an incest survivor, but I was exposed to porn and all of that at age 6 and 7 years old, right? And so you can imagine all the things that I saw. And here's the other thing. I liked it, right? I remember being a little boy and being kind of into it. And I would take these magazines, I would show them to friends and they would be like, what is this? And I was like, you don't like this? But that stuff followed me into my relationships. And if I'm being completely honest, it still is a part of me in, a marriage that I've been in now for 18 years, where there can be these moments of intimacy where I get really anxious as it's getting ready to happen. And I can develop what they call a performance anxiety sometimes, right? And we move through a lot of that. And it's so far and few between now, but it can still happen. And I love hearing you articulate that. Now I want to switch gears and I want to talk about something you said earlier, which is what we all know to be true, which is the body keeps the score. And all of that trauma that you experienced, as you mentioned on the onset, that stays stuck inside of us until we make a choice to try and work through it and release it. So how do you feel like the body kept the score for you?
Okay. This is how I can explain it. And this is why I can left side of my brain can explain the actual information and the emotional part. I have a hard time merging the two still. I still have to put it together. But when you have the bell curve and you have a trauma, here's the climax of it. Right before that trauma event or that energy builds up, your body freezes it and breaks it into fragments and then stores it in different parts of your body. That's how it protects you from that shock that may possibly kill you in that traumatic event, right? Or that stress overload. And that can be anything. like in my situation, incest survivor, I was also trafficked from my father too with his friend, at least the one time that I can remember. And like, I've had these huge things that have happened. Some are smaller and then they build up and ramp up. So like, and take your pick of a memory and what has frozen and lodged into my body. So it's like all over, right? You know, I very specifically, I had to follow my body to learn how to release certain things and at what layer do I want to release and let go and what tools would serve me at that time. And that's why I started learning probably since I was a teenager. I don't know how I developed it. I do have natural gifts like empathic, or I have a felt sense too. That's why I do a lot of somatic therapies like acupuncture and Reiki. And I can just feel energies in people's body and I can feel where things are stuck. And I can have, sometimes there's flashes or memories in that person's body. Like I can see it in my own as well. Like I just developed a system of just for my own healing. And so I can give you an example. Trying to think, maybe it was like 6-7 years ago. Like my son was probably like 2 years old and my dad has passed away. I finally saw that it was his face, that it was him causing all this harm and those memories. Cause you could see the memories, but you didn't see the face. That was like the last bit. And then there's certain things that happen in those memories, like someone holding my neck a certain way or, you know, just this, I would feel literally a handprint on my neck and I would have neck pain. I would have headaches. I would have my jaw clenching for like months. And it usually when a layer comes out for me, it like builds up somatically or physically. I'm starting to get neck stuff and it's on one side. I'm like, why do I feel like there's a hand holding right here? Or why do I feel like I'm choking? Like, why do I feel these sensations that happened a long time ago? Because now they're thawing out and I had to do different therapies to see what would work. And sometimes it would just have to feel the intensity of what was stored there in order to fully release and be free of it.
For women that are trying to get pregnant and they're having a hard time, what are you trying to help them? I mean, I know you're trying to help them have a baby, but what are you trying to do to their body to get them to have a baby?
I basically ask them what is their goals and expectations of me. I know it's the baby, but I always want to get a sense of where they're at and what the block may be. And then we put a plan to tackle that. So I can go, there's a whole list of benefits of what we can do, like make the period more regular, less painful. We can reverse PCOS and keep it away, you know, within time, you know, so they can check their cycles, know when they ovulate, or also have better intimacy with their partners, you know, that's not so scheduled and, you know, dissociated and detached. A lot of times that happens. And I'm more of like, if you want to, then it's go time. Here's your window, like every other day if you want to. That's like my guideline. But if you're not up for it, it's still a no. There's always next month. It's trying to have a baby in a healthy manner. It's trying to get the parents both to be healthy on all levels so they can produce healthy children in a healthier environment to raise them. It's not just have a baby and do everything to sacrifice that. It's about building and nourishing and whatever that looks like for the woman specifically if I'm working with them.
What are some of your modalities?
Everyone gets acupuncture and sometimes there's electroacupuncture, which is like a TENS unit that clips onto the acupuncture. We use at very specific times of the cycle. Most people get herbal medicine and you're on that for a few months.
Is that tea for you or is that pills or like, is it both?
It's like, so there's different forms. It can be, most of the time it's like capsules, which are like, you know, or there's tea pills, which are like the circular ones, which are a little bit smaller. And then, or those herbal extract, which is kind of like a tincture. So it's a liquid herbs that is a lot easier for people to take. Those are what I prescribe usually. People like to do tea and sometimes we'll add that in, but capsules and tinctures.
My acupuncture story goes like this. I'm, I don't know, early 30s. I've just had deviated septum surgery 2 years prior, and 2 years after my deviated septum surgery, I'm blocked again, like 90%. Like after septum surgery, I went back to being blocked. I go see this acupuncture and this Chinese medicine dude back in Milwaukee, and he puts me on this regimen where I'm drinking the world's most disgusting tea on planet Earth. It was so foul tasting that I just literally had to like stomach it, deal with it, and drink it. I did 10 sessions with him. I drank this tea for 6 weeks, and I'm not joking with people, I've literally never gone back to being blocked again. There was some regulation that tea and the acupuncture had, and I don't know what it is. I don't know what those herbs were. I don't know why it tastes so damn bad, but it worked. And I love hearing you talk about tinctures and capsules now, because that would have been a much more enjoyable experience, you know?
Sometimes if people need something quicker, and I usually have like Western herbs, and I'll have some Chinese herbs in raw form in the office, and I'll blend them a tea. Like say, for example, if they have muscle spasms, I'm going to give you valerian root and cramp bark, which is a natural muscle relaxer, and they both calm down pain. But I'm like, it tastes like feet. It may taste really earthy. It tastes like crap. I'm like, you just have to take your medicine and just do the best you can. And
take your medicine. That's where
take your medicine.
From. Yeah.
Because it's like bitter or pungent. Like there's different flavors than just sweet, which us Americans love. I love sugar too. Like it's a great addiction. But like those herbs, like they have strong flavors. I will use tea if I have to, and I might use them more while I'm up here. It depends.
I knew I was going to love having you on this podcast, and I have so far. As you step into motherhood yourself, and one of the things we talk about and learn from people who lived it is this idea that we're going to break generational cycles, and, you know, that you are the transitional character in your lineage. You're the person here to shift the damn thing. Like there's been so much dysfunction leading to you that you finally are at a place where you're like, enough of this. We're doing this differently from now on. What other kind of generational cycles are you hoping to end that you had to witness?
Well, I already
for your own boys. Yeah.
For my own boys. Well, they'll never be abused on my clock, at least from me. And teaching them boundaries, teaching them no, teaching them what their body is their own. So teaching them since they were born. So that's been new things. There's no drug abuse. There's no gambling. There's none of that dysfunction. I've been married to my husband for 6 years. We've been together for almost 17. So a stable, healthy relationship. This is the only second move they've ever known, instead of like 5 and 2 or 3 years like I knew when I was a teenager. So yeah, stability, having their own voice. I need to work on not yelling when I'm, because either if you get triggered, you go high or low. So like you get frustrated, I might raise my voice a little bit more. So I'm working on that, or teaching patience. I'm not really a patient person, actually. I may be in the clinic and holding space. For some reason I am, but at home I'm like, I'm Italian too. So I mean, it's a mix of that, but I want to work on regulating and teaching new tools like meditation and stuff like that. I need to get more into that, or movement. Like I want them to get more involved in that too. So that's why I hope to break.
I'm so happy to hear you say some of that stuff, because I too have that whole thing where, as a parent, sometimes I want to like go to mile marker 10 out of the gate, and like 2 is going to be perfectly acceptable. But sometimes I don't trust myself, and so I completely withdraw and I do nothing in some moments, because I'm like a little bit afraid of how I'm going to react in those times. Do you experience that sometimes?
I'm in it right now.
Yeah. Okay. I love it.
I'm in it right now. Like, just to be honest, we've flipped our house, sold our house, moved, closed the clinic, got new jobs, all these huge changes. We're under actually it's been really good, but that's high stress on all levels. My son is not in school yet, so he's been home, and he's high energy kid. Like I'm more of a chilled out kind of person, and he's just hyper. Like he's just who he is. It's fine. And with the baby, so like it's been like I need a break, and my husband works and I've been home because the clinic's not open yet.
Yeah, right.
So it's more of like, either I got to breathe and walk away and put myself in timeout, or once my husband gets home, I'm like, I'm going for a walk for an hour, peace out, or I leave. I'll remove myself from the environment to reset. It helps me a lot. Or I'm just honest with my son. I'm like, please go to your room right now, because I'm about to scream and I don't want to. I need to take a couple deep breaths, like whatever is needed. Like we don't spank at all. And I'm having urges to want to do that because I was raised that way too. And I'm like, nope, it doesn't work. Don't do it. Put the hand down. Okay, go discharge it somewhere else.
There you go. Like, another cycle you're going to break is that level of physical abuse, right? I had an enormous amount of that growing up too. And it's one of the things my kids they've never felt me lay a hand on them in anger in that way. And try to beat them senseless so they can get straightened out. Or whatever our parents were trying to do. And listen, and a lot of the reasons that people don't talk about this kind of stuff because they feel like they're bagging on their parents. But listen, they just didn't have any good tools. And I think any parent who did that stuff would have no choice but to admit that today. Like, yeah, man, I messed up. I didn't have the right information. I had the wrong tool set and all of the things. And just now we're learning. So now we get to do better. And we should want to, I talk to my wife about this all the time, about how there's people in this world who, if they have to feel it, you have to feel it too. If it happened to them, boy, damn, are they going to make sure that it happened to you too? It's just such a wild way to operate your life. And I think, why wouldn't you want to just make this place a little better than you found it? And I know that that's hard to do, because breaking generational cycles and breaking cycles is difficult. It does take you thought. It does take you, Danielle, saying, I need to go for a walk for 1 hour right now to reset my body. Mm-hmm. Great. Take it. Do it. Yeah. And then come back to us when you're ready. And we'll be here. But there's so much pressure to get it right all the time that it can really drive us crazy.
You can't. I don't believe in toxic positivity or unrealistic expectations. Like, I like to be authentic, and I like to be real and honest with things that are happening. And it's not this way or that way, you know?
There's one question I'm going to wrap up with, and I've been kind of sitting on it this whole time. A little nervous to ask it, but I'm going to anyways. What is your relationship with your father like in death?
At this time, I will never forgive him. Because he comes to me in my dreams. I saw him after he died. I do see that level of things in the spirit world a little bit. At least, I don't know, my brain does or what have you. I see other things as well. But right now, at this time and place, I would love to change my last name because it's his name. You know, I want to almost burn all bridges. I think I've burned everything I've had of his physically. I do have some pictures and stuff like that, but I don't have a relationship right now. And I've seen him the last couple months in my dreams, and he'll try to reach out to me in certain ways. You need to forgive me so I can move on and transition. And I'm like, no, you can stay in limbo for all I care. There's this, I'm needing a level of justice still. And that has shifted over since I've done this change to Utah. So I'm wondering if that energy will shift, or my need for that. I don't know if that's getting my voice out there more and speaking on these topics, or I don't know. I don't need to forgive him because I did nothing wrong. I need to learn how to have inner peace with myself with everything I went through. So that's where I'm at with him. There's parts of me that still love him. And I had some really good memories when I was an adult with him that were healthy, even if you can understand that.
I think people can. Yeah.
There's some good memories on some things, and I will cherish those. At least I got something from there, because basically, other than that, I feel like an orphan, Yeah. And I feel like I need to forgive myself on some things, and I need to find some inner peace. And that's what I'm working on now, because that's the only way I'll keep being free.
Well, and your work is your medicine, right? There's no way around it. I mean, the things that you get to do for people are what they help you along in your journey, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I hope you keep speaking up and speaking out. And if I can be an advocate and an ally in that space, let me know, because there are so many people who are stuck, and they are in their 30s and 40s and 50s, and they're still dealing with things that happened to them when they were 6 and 8 and 12 and 14. And as I say to people when I speak now, until you deal with your stuff, we all have to. And there's a lot of value. There is a lot of value in going to work on yourself, because you really become the best version for you and everybody else. And it's getting people to understand that. I know it's going to be hard. It's going to suck. You're going to remember things that you hate. You're going to get the worst taste in your mouth. You're going to potentially have a suicidal ideation. These are real parts of the healing process. But once you go through them, there is real freedom on the other side of those conversations, and there's real peace on the other side of those conversations. It's just nothing that I would encourage you to go through alone. Going through it with somebody like Danielle makes the whole thing manageable, because you have somebody who can guide you in this space. And I believe, if nothing else, that's your true value in this world, Danielle, is that you are a guide for people who are hurting to find some healing. And that's really, really incredible.
Thank you, Matt. That makes me cry. That was beautiful.
It is. It's such a beautiful thing that, because we're given these awful pain points, and they can break us, or we can use them to help other people. And for those that have latched onto that idea, rather, that I can use my pain to help other people, I like those folks. Well, Danielle, thriving in Eastern medicine. It's in Utah right now, and I'm praying and hoping to connect you with a bunch of folks that I've just recently come to know in Utah, who will all be dying to get on your table and pick your brain about all of the things that you know. You are at TEM, well, then acupuncture. It's TEM Acupuncture, right?
Yes, TEMacupuncture.com.
Go see it. You can see the services, all the things she's doing with women's health, pain relief. You can get her story, testimonials. There's a blog, a chance to connect. It's all there on her site. And I'm just so content with our conversation. That's the word that I feel inside right now. Thank you for offering it today.
Thank you so much. I feel the same way. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. Good stuff. Thanks, Danielle.
You're welcome. Thank you, Matt.
We have 3 goals with Learn from People Who Lived It. 1. To help you feel less alone. 2. Encourage you to seek out a coach, a therapist, a church, anyone who can help you get through your journey and find some healing. 3. When you're ready, share your story with us.
Find Learn from People Who Lived It wherever you get podcasts. Search it using all one word. Learn from People Who Lived It.
Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Learn from People Who Lived It. I hope you feel less alone. I hope you too feel encouraged to talk about it. And now I want to remind you that we're online anytime at learnfrompeoplewholived.com. We've also got connections to Danielle and all of our other guests in the show notes, which you can find in each episode. Many thanks to Sam, who is our podcast manager here at Learn from People Who Lived It. As a mental wellness advocate and motivational speaker, one of my favorite things to do is to come into your business, big and small, and help your people understand the value of taking care of themselves. And in my 90-minute workshop, we will change hearts and minds and help people understand the value of a self-care strategy. Reach out at learnfrompeoplewholived.com. We can connect on rates, dates, and get this going. Have a great day.